Hi history lovers, and welcome back to the channel where I bring you new videos every week on all aspects of the past. Today's video from History Calling is a little more whimsical than some of my others because we're going to be asking, is Friday the 13th really unlucky, and looking at the history of this famous, or rather infamous, date. Why is it associated with doom? Is there any evidence that you really should be worried about it? And what do Jesus, the Knights Templar, Geoffrey Chaucer, an Apollo space mission, and Loki from the Avengers have to do with it? Stay tuned to find out. Please remember to give this video a like and subscribe to the channel with notifications switched on so that YouTube lets you know every time I upload. You can also follow me on Instagram where my username is History Calling, and there's a link for that in the description box below. The fear of Friday the 13th is so widespread nowadays that it actually has its own word, which is ironically rather terrifying to pronounce, and which comes from the Greek words for Friday and 13. If you suffer from a fear of this date, then you have a nasty case of paraskevidekatriophobia, and I don't want to hear about it in the comments if I mispronounce that, because it was hands down the worst word I've ever had to attempt for you. But where does this fear come from, and how far back can we trace it? The fear of Friday the 13th actually seems to be a combination of two other superstitions which have been melded together to form one superstition. These are a fear of the number 13 and a fear of Friday, or at least a belief that it's an unlucky day. Let's look at the number 13 first, the fear of which is called triskaidekaphobia, another Greek combo, this time of the words for 3 and 10, plus of course the word phobia. So it literally means 3 and 10 phobia, or 13 phobia. When hunting around the internet, you'll find all sorts of explanations as to why this number is felt to be unlucky. One story is that it comes from Norse mythology and an incident involving the prankster Loki, now made famous thanks to Tom Hiddleston's portrayal of him in the Marvel Cinematic Universe films. According to the original story, Loki arrived at a dinner at Valhalla as the 13th and uninvited guest, and through his shenanigans tricked the blind god Hodor, feel free to indulge in some Game of Thrones jokes here, into killing his brother Balder, who was the favoured son of King Odin of Asgard and his wife Queen Frigg. We'll come back to this queen in a minute, by the way. Balder's death then initiated the fall of the gods, known as the Ragnarok. Again, you can see the links to the Thor films here. Another explanation given is that 13 refers to the number of guests at the Last Supper in the New Testament, eaten the day before Jesus was crucified. These guests were Jesus himself plus his 12 disciples, including the treacherous Judas Iscariot, who was supposedly the 13th guest to arrive. Having checked the Bible though, I don't see any reference to Judas arriving separately from the others, but do let me know if I've missed something. Then we have the claims of numerologists, who argue that the number 12 is perfect. Think of the 12 months of the year, 12 days of Christmas, 12 zodiac signs, and the aforementioned 12 disciples of Jesus. And that the number 13 is therefore unlucky because it is beyond perfection, and not in a good way. Whether you believe in it or not, this superstition has undoubtedly affected the world around us, including architecture. An article in the New York Times from June 1977 said that many, if not most, high-rise residences in New York are 13-less. On West End Avenue, on East 86th Street, in Greenwich Village, buildings old, buildings new, their elevators read 11, 12, 14. The fear, apparently, was that apartments on the 13th floor would be harder to rent or sell. I'd be fascinated to hear in the comments from any listener who lives in a high-rise building, whether in New York or elsewhere, if this is true in your experience. Does your building have a 13th floor, and if it doesn't, do you know how old it is? You might also be interested to know that New York's Flatiron Building and the Empire State Building do both have 13th floors, so we can be sure that not everyone buys into this fear. I've read too that the French dislike having 13 at a dinner table, but I've seen no empirical proof of that. Perhaps if I have any French listeners or listeners with French connections, they can let me know if that story is true as well. There are also cases in which those who believe in the superstition will point to infamous events which have some association with the number 13, and cite them as apparent evidence of its dangers. One of the best known of these was the Apollo 13 lunar mission. This actually launched on Saturday the 11th of April 1970, albeit at 8:13 p.m, but soon suffered a near catastrophic explosion whilst in space. This disaster almost killed its three-man crew and put pay to any ideas they had of going to the moon. However, they all made it back to Earth, and so, if anything, we might say that they were incredibly lucky, rather than the reverse. There's even a hit movie starring Tom Hanks and Kevin Bacon about their experience, which I'll leave linked below for you. As for how long reasons such as these have been given as evidence for this superstition, according to Steve Rood in his book The Penguin Guide to the Superstitions of Britain and Ireland, also linked below, while mythological and biblical events may be used to support a fear of 13, it was only in the 1690s that a superstition around having that number of people at a dinner table began to appear in the documentary evidence, and only in the mid-19th century that a more widespread fear of the number started to become commonplace. People weren't generally afraid of it 2,000 years ago. The evidence has just been retroactively found and fitted to the superstition. So that takes care of the number 13, but what about Fridays? Why are they unpopular despite being the start of the weekend for most of us, and should I have chosen a different day to upload my YouTube videos? As with 13, there are numerous supposed explanations for some people's lukewarm feelings towards Fridays. Funnily enough though, it wasn't always looked upon with suspicion. Remember King Odin's wife, Frigg, Queen of Asgard? Well, she inspired the English word Friday, it literally means Day of Frigg, and was a powerful goddess of love and fertility in Norse mythology. With the coming of Christianity though, these pagan connections were no longer popular, and the Queen's story was altered to make her a mountain-dwelling witch who planned her upcoming evil every Friday. Returning to the Bible, Jesus was of course crucified on a Friday, though somewhat incongruously, that day is now referred to as Good Friday. I've also read some pretty ludicrous and utterly unsupported theories that things like Eve giving Adam the apple, their son Cain killing his brother Abel, and the Great Flood all happened on a Friday, but please pay no attention to these tall tales. Writing over 1300 years after the time of Jesus, in his most famous work, The Canterbury Tales, English author Geoffrey Chaucer said of some misfortune which had befallen his characters that, "And on a Friday fell all this mischance." Then, in 1592, a pamphlet entitled Green's Groat's Worth of Wit, published in London and supposedly written by another English author, Robert Greene, included the line, "The fox made a Friday face, counterfeiting sorrow." Literary references such as these only added to the general perception that it is somehow a bad day, as did its traditional use as the Hangman's Day in Britain and later America. So we've established that a dislike of the number 13 and of Fridays has been around for centuries, but when did these two superstitions combine into an all-out fear of Friday the 13th? Well, the answer is not that long ago actually. The genesis of Friday the 13th as a day of bad luck can only be traced back to the second half of the 19th century, making it all the Victorians' fault. Funnily enough, it may well have been an attempt by a group of people to disprove the superstitions around the number 13 and Fridays, along with many others, which inadvertently gave rise to the Friday the 13th beliefs. In 1882, William Fowler of New York City started a society known as the 13 Club. Its purpose was to disprove as many superstitions as it could. It had 13 members, held dinners on the 13th of a month, with 13 courses, and of course the 13 guests at the table. According to an article in the Los Angeles Herald, written to celebrate the club's 13th anniversary in 1895, at the dinners of the club it has been a regular custom to spill salt, to cross forks, and to break looking glasses, and its initiation fee was $1.13. More interestingly still, this article explains that the club had taken aim at the two separate superstitions surrounding 13 and Fridays, but makes no mention of there being a third fear specifically of Friday the 13th. Instead, in their eagerness to combat as many superstitions as possible, the club had met when it could on that date, which only occurs between 1 and 3 times in a year by the way, but only because this allowed them to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. There doesn't seem to have been a particular fear of the combination of that day and number in earlier decades. It may well be then that the actions of the 13 Club accidentally made Friday the 13th a point of superstition, particularly as the popularity of the club spread and new branches of it began to meet in other cities, including London. They were successful in other areas though, and were credited by the LA Herald with helping to encourage executions to be carried out on days other than Fridays, so that by 1895 it was no longer known as Hangman's Day. Certainly within a few decades of the original club's creation, the idea that this date was cursed somehow had taken on a life of its own, and soon the day was being used in all sorts of ways and blamed for all kinds of mishaps, current and historical. In 1907, author Thomas Lawson published his book entitled Friday the 13th, which only fueled the fires of suspicion further, and by 1926, the Hull Daily Mail newspaper in England could report that the crew of a French tugboat had refused to carry out their dangerous job of recovering gold from a shipwreck on Friday the 13th, and the task had therefore been put off until the following day. The paranoia around the date, and its use for financial gains, has only increased in the decades since. In 1980, the Friday the 13th horror film franchise was launched, and in 2003, Dan Brown's book, The Da Vinci Code, noted that some of the Knights Templar were arrested on Friday the 13th of October 1307, a fact which has since been used as another piece of pseudo-evidence to support the idea that there is something wrong with the date. So fierce has the paranoia around Friday the 13th become that there have even been studies to try to establish if it affects humans in any tangible way. One oft-quoted article in the British Medical Journal from December 1993 suggested that there was a 52% higher risk of a traffic accident on that day. However, the authors freely admitted that the datasets they used were very limited, their statistical analysis was very simple, and the whole tone of the article strongly suggests that it was intended to be a bit of tongue-in-cheek fun for the BMJ's Christmas edition. They only looked at a handful of Friday the 13ths, using traffic data for a little bit of the M25 motorway and stats from some shopping centres and hospitals, then compared that data to similar data from 1 week earlier in each case. It was far from an exhaustive study, nor was it meant to be. In 2008, another report came out, this time from the Dutch Centre for Insurance Statistics. It found that there are fewer accidents, fires and thefts on Friday the 13th, though the value of goods lost on that day was slightly higher, and contrary to the BMJ article, concluded that driving is actually slightly safer. What I take from all of this is that you can argue Friday the 13th is luckier, unluckier, or just the same as any other day, depending on what evidence you want to look at, and indeed how loosely you want to define the word evidence. There's nothing conclusive either way, and I'm certainly not worried about having my videos come out on a Friday, though I don't doubt that if this one, released on Friday the 13th of May 2022, doesn't do particularly well, people will cite that as evidence of the curse. Let me know in the comments below if you're superstitious about Friday the 13th, or indeed anything else, and if so, why. I'll be back next week with a new video, and until then, keep learning.
धन रामदास गुरु जिन सिरिया तिन्हें सवारिया
बैठा सोढ़ी पातशाह रामदास सतगुरु कहावै। चौथी पातशाही श्री गुरु रामदास जी जो अध्यात्मक आगू होने दे नाल नाल एक उच्च कोटि दे बाणीकार भी सन। गुरु साहब दा बचपन दा नाम जेठा सी। आप दा प्रकाश चूना मंडी लाहौर दे वसनीक पिता हरदास जी दे घर माता दया कौर जी दी पावन कुखों 1534 ईस्वी नूं होया।
रामदास गुरु जिन सिरिया तिन्हें सवारिया।
बचपन च ही आप जी दे माता पिता चलाना कर गए अते आप जी दे नानी जी आप जी नूं पिंड बासर की लै आए। इस तरह आप छोटी उम्र च किरत कमाई करते हुए घुंगणियां वेचिया करते सन। सो इस तरह हालात आप जी नूं चूना मंडी लाहौर तो बासर के ते बासर के तो गोइंदवाल साहब लै आए। ਪਰ ਦੁਸ਼ਵਾਰੀਆਂ ਦੇ ਸਮੁੰਦਰ ਨੂੰ ਚੀਰਦੇ ਹੋਏ ਗੁਰੂ ਰਾਮਦਾਸ ਜੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਅਮਰਦਾਸ ਜੀ ਦੀ ਸੰਗਤ ਸਦਕਾ ਆਤਮ ਨਿਰਭਰ ਹੋ ਸ਼ੁਭ ਗੁਣਾਂ ਦੀ ਮਹਿਕ ਵੰਡਦੇ ਅੱਗੇ ਹੀ ਵਧਦੇ ਗਏ।
ਪੂਰੀ ਹੋਈ ਕਰਾਮਾ।
ਗੁਰੂ ਅਮਰਦਾਸ ਜੀ ਨੇ ਦੁੱਖਾਂ ਦੀਆਂ ਚਟਾਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਚੀਰ ਕੇ ਖਿੜੇ ਇਸ ਫੁੱਲ ਵਰਗੇ ਬਾਲਕ ਦੀ ਹਿੰਮਤ ਅਤੇ ਦੈਵੀ ਗੁਣਾਂ ਦੀ ਕਦਰ ਕਰਦਿਆਂ ਆਪਣੀ ਪੁੱਤਰੀ ਬੀਬੀ ਭਾਨੀ ਜੀ ਦਾ ਨਾਤਾ ਰਾਮਦਾਸ ਜੀ ਨਾਲ ਜੋੜਿਆ। ਇਸ ਚੜ੍ਹਦੀ ਕਲਾ ਦੀ ਬਿਰਤੀ ਦੀ ਕਦਰ ਕਰਦਿਆਂ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਅਮਰਦਾਸ ਜੀ ਨੇ ਰਾਮਦਾਸ ਜੀ ਨੂੰ ਆਪਣਾ ਦਾਮਾਦ ਬਣਾ ਲਿਆ। ਪਰ ਰਾਮਦਾਸ ਜੀ ਸਦਾ ਮਨ ਨੀਵਾਂ ਤੇ ਮੱਤ ਉੱਚੀ ਰੱਖਦੇ। ਲਾਹੌਰ ਤੋਂ ਆਏ ਰਾਮਦਾਸ ਜੀ ਦੇ ਸ਼ਰੀਕਾਂ ਨੇ ਸੇਵਾ ਕਰਦਿਆਂ ਵੇਖ ਸਹੁਰਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਚਾਕਰ ਕਹਿ ਮਿਹਣਿਆਂ ਦੀ ਝੜੀ ਲਾ ਦਿੱਤੀ। ਜੇ ਕੋਈ ਨਿੰਦ ਕਰੇ ਹਰ ਜਨ ਕੀ, ਆਪਣਾ ਗੁਣ ਨਾ ਗਵਾਵੇ ਦਾ ਉਪਦੇਸ਼ ਦੇਣ ਵਾਲੇ ਰਾਮਦਾਸ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਜੀ ਦੀ ਸਹਿਜ ਅਵਸਥਾ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੋਈ ਫਰਕ ਨਾ ਪਿਆ। ਗੁਰੂ ਰਜ਼ਾ ਦੇ ਸੰਚੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਐਸਾ ਢਾਲਿਆ ਕਿ ਨਤੀਜਿਆਂ ਤੋਂ ਬੇਪਰਵਾਹ ਹੋ ਕੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਹੁਕਮ 'ਚ ਕਰਮਸ਼ੀਲ ਹੋਣਾ ਹੀ ਧਰਮ ਬਣ ਗਿਆ ਤੇ ਔਕੜ ਹਾਲਾਤ ਤੇ ਮਜਬੂਰੀਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਪਛਾੜ ਕੇ ਆਤਮ ਹੁਲਾਸ ਵਿੱਚ ਲੱਟ ਬਲਦੀ ਇਸ ਜੋਤ ਨਾਲ ਗੁਰੂ ਅਮਰਦਾਸ ਜੀ ਨੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਜੋਤ ਇੱਕ ਮਿਕ ਕਰਕੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਰਾਮਦਾਸ ਜੀ ਨੂੰ ਗੁਰੂ ਨਾਨਕ ਜੋਤ ਦੇ ਵਾਰਸ ਬਣਾ ਦਿੱਤਾ। ਗੁਰੂ ਰਾਮਦਾਸ ਜੀ ਦਾ ਗੁਰੂ ਪਦਵੀ ਦਾ ਸਫ਼ਰ ਸਾਡੇ ਲਈ ਆਤਮ ਵਿਸ਼ਵਾਸ ਅਤੇ ਚੜ੍ਹਦੀ ਕਲਾ ਦਾ ਮਾਰਗ ਹੈ।
ਤੇਰਾ ਅੰਤ ਨ ਪਾਰਾ ਵਾਰਿਆ।
ਧੰਨ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ ਦੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਸਾਧ ਸੰਗਤ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀਓ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। We're blessed again to be gathered together, this time to celebrate the Gurta Gaddi Divas of Sahib Sri Guru Angad Dev Sahib Ji Maharaj, the second Guru of the Sikhs, the Ang of Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji, because we know when Guru Angad Dev Sahib Ji first came to the sanctuary of Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji, they were known as Lena, Bhai Lena Ji. So we're celebrating their Gurta Gaddi Divas, the day they become the Guru of the Sikhs and they take the light of Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji as it is passed on to them, the divine light. So Bhai Lena Ji came to the sanctuary of Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji. Bhai Lena Ji actually used to be a worshipper of another way. They would take Sangat to Jawalamukhi one year, and on the way they'd heard of Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji and they came to do their darshan. As they were coming to do their darshan on the horse, an old person came and carried them and brought them to the house where Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji was. That old person, as Bhai Lena Ji saw from their eyes, was actually Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji themselves. They said to Bhai Lena Ji as they brought the horse that Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji is in the house. Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji went round the back and sat in the house. When Bhai Lena Ji went inside, they realized that the person who came forth to bring them was Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji themselves, and they begged for forgiveness. That Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji asked them their name. They said, "My name is Lena." And Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji says, "That's right, tusi Lena, you are to take, main dena, I am going to give." They've already mentioned that they're about to give or they will give the Gurta Gaddi, the divine light, to Bhai Lehna Ji, who then becomes Guru Angad Dev Sahib Ji. We also know from history that it was Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji themselves who'd blessed the parents of Bhai Lehna Ji. When Bhai Lehna Ji came to this world, they'd already visited their parents at that time. So Bhai Lehna Ji stayed in the sanctuary of Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji at Kartarpur Sahib, the place which is now just on the border of Pakistan and India. They stayed at that place, always completing the hukum of Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji. At the end of Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji's times, they were testing the Gursikhs to see who would be worthy. They dressed themselves in old and ragged clothes. They got dogs with them. They had a stick and they would hit Sikhs and say, go away, run away. They would throw maya and money, and some of those Sikhs would pick up the money and run away. As they were testing the Sikhs, 4 Gursikhs, Bhai Sadaran Ji, Bhai Bhagirath Ji, Baba Buddha Sahib Ji and Bhai Lehna Ji themselves were the last 4 to stay and continue to follow Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji. Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji was pajaying everybody, run away, I don't need the Sikhs, there is no Sikhi. They're testing them to see how strong their faith is. Will they remain with the Guru no matter if they're being shouted at? Those 4 Gursikhs remained. Guru Sahib Ji continued, and 3 of those, Bhai Bhagirath Ji, Bhai Sadaran Ji and Baba Buddha Sahib Ji, hid behind a bush, but Bhai Lehna Ji continued. There was a dead carcass under a white cloth. Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji kept saying, if you keep saying you're a Sikh of mine, will you do anything? They said yes. They said, eat this dead carcass. Bhai Lehna Ji stood there. Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji said that, look, you're not even eating it. You said you'll follow my every hukam. Bhai Lehna Ji said, I was waiting for you to tell me which side to start, from the head side or from the feet side. When they lifted up the chadar, it wasn't a dead carcass, it was Kadaha Prasadi Deg, and they were blessed at that point. Baba Buddha Sahib Ji later, at the time of Guru Hargobind Sahib Ji, because they are the greatest Gursikh outside of the Gurus, and Baba Buddha Sahib Ji later explained to Guru Hargobind Sahib Ji when they were asked that the Tej Pratap, the divine light, they couldn't handle the divine light, and that's why those 3 Gursikhs couldn't handle and continue forward, because it was always meant to be by Lehna Ji, who is the second form of Akal Purkh Waheguru on this earth. So other times, Baba Siri Chand, Baba Lakshmi Das, the sons of Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji, they would never necessarily follow the hukum of Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji. One such time when Guru Sahib Ji asks for the chadra to be washed, the cloths, the bed cloths to be washed, Bhai Lehna Ji washes those cloths. Baba Siri Chand and Baba Lakshmi Das don't do that. When a cat brings a dead mouse into the house, Baba Siri Chand is told and Baba Lakshmi Das is to take it out of the house, but they don't, they refuse. They say, go get a nokar to it. Bhai Lehna Ji at once picks it up and takes it out. So Baba Lakshmi Das and Baba Siri Chand always thought themselves as greater, that the servants could do these deeds, but a Sikh will always do the seva of the Guru no matter what seva it is. A pot was thrown in the Shappad. Shappad is like the swamp type area in villages that we see. And again, Baba Siri Chand and Bhai Lakshmi Das refused to go in. Bhai Lehna Ji in their clothes jump straight in there, take out the pot, wash it clean, completely clean, even though their clothes are completely dirty and they're dripping with mud and the swamp water. But the pot is cleaned and given back to Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji. Because Mata Salakhani Ji, the mother of Baba Siri Chand and Bhai Lakshmi Das, questioned why Bhai Lehna Ji is giving all the blessings. And these were times when Guru Sahib Ji showed that our sons don't even follow the command of the Guru. So how are they to be blessed? Bhai Lehna Ji is given the Gurta Gaddi. They are blessed and they are given the name Sri Guru Angad Dev Sahib Ji Maharaj. They are told to go to Khadur Sahib. But before they go to Khadur Sahib, Baba Buddha Sahib Ji one more time has a shanka, because they know they are the sevadar of the Sikhs, of the Guru. And they have this shanka, the confusion in their mind, that Guru Sahib Ji blessed them with everything, but why weren't they given the Gurta Gaddi? So one night, Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji asked Baba Buddha Sahib Ji, what time is it? Is it time to awake? Is it Amrit Vela yet? Baba Buddha Sahib Ji says, it's Addi Raat hui hai. So it's about 6 hours. If we say the night is 12 hours, it's about 6 hours into the night. Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji said, no, it looks like there are only 3 hours left of the night. So basically we've had 3/4 of the night and there's 1/4 left, which we should awake for the last 3 hours, which is Amrit Vela. Another time they test again, and each time Baba Buddha Sahib Ji, because they were Siane, they were blessed as the name of Buddha by Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji, because they had great knowledge. And each time Baba Buddha Sahib Ji would look at the stars and say, no, it's Addi Raat, it's halfway through the night, we've still got a few hours before Amrit Vela is. Then another time they asked Bhai Lehna Ji. Bhai Lehna Ji is asked, What time is it? First, Bhai Lehna Ji says it's Addi Raat, but Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji say, no, it looks like it's Amrit Vela, there's 3 hours left. Bhai Lehna Ji says Sat Bachan. Whatever bachan you say is true. If you, the hukam is all yours, Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji, you are the commander of the world, you are Waheguru themselves. If you say there's only 3 hours left of the night and it is now time for Amrit Vela, we should be getting up, then it must be the case. Sat Bachan, you must be right. So even though it was Addi Raat, Bhai Lehna Ji was the one who followed the hukam and accepted what Guru Sahib Ji said. That shows us that whatever Guru Sahib Ji tell us to do, whether we think it's right or wrong, whether we think it's for these modern times or for the Western world or for the day and age we live in, we should always listen, believe and follow the hukam of our Guru, whatever it is, because we should always say Sat Bachan to it. So Bhai Lehna Ji was always saying Sat Bachan, and that's why they were worthy of being the Guru of the Sikhs. But we also know that they came to this world as the Guru, and they showed us the way actually by listening, believing and following the hukam of Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji. So today we're celebrating the Gurta Gadi Divas of Sahib Sri Guru Angad Dev Sahib Ji Maharaj. Sri Guru Angad Dev Sahib Ji Maharaj, like I said, their name was changed to Angad. They are the limb, the Ang of Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji. They are one and the same. They are the form of Waheguru. We're celebrating their Gurta Gadi Divas. There's no slight on Baba Buddha Sahib Ji because it was just the hukam. They showed us through the Sakhiyan that Bhai Lehna Ji was the worthy one. Baba Buddha Sahib Ji, though, is the greatest Guru Sikh outside of the Gurus, but we're remembering and celebrating Sri Guru Angad Dev Sahib Ji today. If I've made any mistakes, I beg for forgiveness. Let us hope and pray that Guru Sahib Ji can bless us all. Deho sajjan asi siriyan Jehovah Sahib Ji me lekha kat ehna shuti khen khen pulan har baksan har baksala nanak par utar Waheguru Ji ka Khalsa Waheguru Ji ki Fateh.
Please like, comment, subscribe and share this video to spread the message of Sikhi. Make your daswan safala and donate so we can create more content like this. The link is in the description below.
Gurmukh naam laya jyoti jyot rale ab man chhoot gaya sadhu sang mile अब मन छूट गया साधु